The book of Romans is a letter the Apostle Paul wrote to the congregation of Jesus followers in Rome. In his letter, Paul reminds us why the Old Testament is important. In chapter 15, verse 4, he says, "For everything that was written in the past was written to teach us, so that through the endurance taught in the scriptures and the encouragement they provide, we might have hope." The Old Testament includes many people who are a part of the cloud of witnesses that can teach us about persevering in our faith, like Daniel. Let's look at two stories of people persevering in different circumstances: Lieutenant Colonels Brian and Dorothy Knightley and Major Lois Duick. Lieutenant Colonel Brian and Dorothy Knightley served in Liberia, Africa for 13 years. They arrived in October 1991. In April 1996, they were evacuated by helicopter, but they returned in July as soon as they were allowed. They stayed until 2004. Liberia was caught up in civil war most of that time. Faithful Liberian officers like Majors Ben and Etta Gaimo continued on even in the toughest part of the war. With their help, the Knightleys were able to accomplish a lot. The Salvation Army opened corps, schools, a training college for Salvation Army officers, hostels, and health clinics. It provided basic literacy and math programs for women. Home leagues had sewing groups, soap making, tie-dyeing, and HIV/AIDS education and prevention. After the first part of the Civil War calmed down, the Knightleys decided to forgive former child soldiers and allow them to stay in the hostels and go to school. They wanted to give them a better option than killing. Some people left the Salvation Army over this decision. When war broke out again, very few of the child soldiers returned to their guns. In fact, they volunteered to sleep in the Salvation Army buildings to keep out the looters. Let's listen to what Lieutenant Colonel Knightley wrote in his own words from his book, Mission Liberia.
It was with mixed feelings that I approached my first Sunday back. I felt sure that our members would be more concerned with rebuilding their lives and homes than attending a service. So I went to the city church expecting to see just a handful in the congregation, but was amazed to see almost 150 people gathered, many in their uniforms. When I got up to speak, I was almost overwhelmed with emotion. All of these people had faced near-death experiences, but were cheerfully singing praises to God and voicing prayers of thanksgiving for deliverance. I had thought I was returning to a people crushed by the fighting, an army that would take years to rebuild, but I was facing a congregation raring to go forward. It was almost as if the testing time they had passed through had invigorated them. The call kept on resounding round the church. God is good all the time.
The Knightleys are a part of the great cloud of witnesses that have gone before us, specifically in the work of the Salvation Army. Let's now learn a little bit more about Canadian officer Major Lois Duick. She said this about her officership.
"It has been like bungee jumping with God, filled with adventures, spiritual adrenaline, swooping uncertainties, painful jolts of reality, joys of flying in his spirit, and the relief of landing in his arms safely."
This was most true during her 5 years in Ukraine. Major Duick opened the MIAC Corps in 1993 for the homeless and those addicted to drugs and alcohol. They turned a derelict farm building into a shelter for rehabilitated men, made the small farm productive and self-sufficient, and started a small sawmill and wood drying kiln. Her faithfulness meant many people's lives were turned around. One person whose life was turned around was Slavo. He left his home to get away from drug trafficking and ended up on the streets. He heard the Salvation Army had food. The first time he went to the Salvation Army, he saw a small woman in uniform playing an accordion bigger than she was. Major Lois Duick welcomed him. He kept coming, not just for the food, but also for the church family he found at the Corps. One day, when Captain Duick hurt her leg on a train platform, Slavo was hired as a driver. At MIAC, he became involved in the fellowship and feeding programs for the homeless. Later, he reconnected with his family. Today, Slavo is married, leads the worship band, and is involved at the Corps. He finished college and has a job. He wants to live like Jesus and show Jesus' love to others. When Major Duick returned to Canada, she kept working with refugees and immigrants. When she was diagnosed with cancer, she shared Jesus with everyone she met during this part of her journey.
That has given fruit to my sweetest peace and joy to date. As for my future, I await the breathtaking vistas of my next bungee jump with my keeper of light. How thoroughly blessed I am. He enables me to tread on the heights. Habakkuk 3:19.
Trusting in the trustworthy, proven character of God helps us persevere in difficulty, like the Knightleys and Major Duick, or it helps us persevere in the mundane and everyday. Perseverance is key, and we could find hope and encouragement from those who have gone before us.